squats helped me so much in arm wrestling for my explosive power, and then learning to use my feet on the ground as a base and what angles to pull from. And arm wrestling really, if it's done correctly, it's a pulling sport. You're trying to pull and you're trying to extend you're trying to extend the lever, because the farther the lever goes out, the weaker it gets.
Right.
So when you start learning that, and then elbow rotation inward, when you rotate your elbow inward, your tricep and lat can actually work together and they're not independent. And when you start learning all these things, and then once you get that lat, then all of a sudden you squeeze your glute, you go, oh, wow, that engages my lower lumbar, hooks right into my lat. And wow, all of a sudden, oh, I feel my hamstring, I feel my foot. And all of a sudden, when you pull a guy's arm, it came from your foot, and their arm just goes like butter. It just, you understand how everything works in series. And then it's not just trying to understand that, but then because I was always going to the world championships, and you're competing at a really, really super high level. So any mistakes you made are giantly magnified.
Where you guys were
Sophomore
always in
to
the
my
corner.
senior year
Seeing you guys in
working.
the corner.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was
That's
a
so
good
funny.
class. And now it's really, what's really amazing about that class is the things that I learned in the 8 or 10 years in running the Hawaiian Arm Wrestling Association. Now I'm watching Devin Larratt and all these guys, and they're doing the exact same movements that I set up 30 years ago before they even started arm wrestling. Because they started in like 2000, and
Oh,
I'd
you was
retired.
way ahead of your
And
time.
now it's
I
a
was
thing,
light
dude.
years ahead. I was
Do you
very,
remember
very
me,
lucky.
Mel, back then?
I do. I used to
You
see you
remember
guys
me?
come in and be like, holy fuck,
When
these
we were
guys
all
are
jacked.
huge.
I trained with Curtis,
Yeah.
Purple
Yep.
Curtis.
Yep.
Mimic Purple
He showed me
Curtis,
Curtis, so
Yeah.
yeah.
It's
So you
all-
remember
my
Curtis?
eyeballs
Yeah.
was just like, holy shit.
Yeah,
How could
they were
how
like
could you
they're
forget
getting
cliques? How
gangsters.
could you forget Curtis?
there were different cliques of us in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you guys with the Curtis clique,
Oh,
I had
yeah.
my thing.
Yeah,
There was all
yeah.
different little bodybuilder cliques in there. How's everybody going? Welcome to another episode of Paradise Pump. And today we have a special guest. His name is Steve English.
Hi,
This guy is old school, big time old school. Been done a lot of things, arm wrestling champ, jiu-jitsu, did some powerlifting, strength training, strongman, all kinds of goodies. So we're gonna get into it. It's got a lot of stories, lots of history. So tell me, Steve. So when did you get started into this whole like fitness thing? You know, working out, and all of it.
I was born in 1960, so it's a while ago. But I remember seeing Bruce Lee and Arnold Schwarzenegger and Joe Namath and Captain Kirk. And all these guys talked shit, and they all kicked ass.
Yeah.
And they became my heroes. And I knew I was going to be stronger than Arnold. And for some reason, I knew that I was going to discover a martial art that was, I liked Bruce Lee, and because of him, I got into martial arts. But I just knew that I was going to discover something that was better because I'd grown up wrestling, and when you watch all the old martial arts movies and stuff, they never dealt with what happens if you meet a college wrestler who's just a big, dumb, strong guy, and you hit him and it doesn't hurt him at all.
Yeah.
and so I was set off on a task. I grew up on a dairy farm, and I'm up at 5 a.m. I'm 5 years old, and I weigh about 50 pounds, and I have to put in 60, 70 cows, and feed another 100, and then feed a bunch of horses, and then 20 or 30 calves.
Where were you living?
I was living in a place called Camas, Washington.
Okay.
And our family had been there for over 100 years.
Oh wow.
And so the farm was originally founded in 1903, and I believe it was what they call I think it was half a section, and so it was hundreds of acres. But by the time I got there, it was down to 180 acres. And so I always knew hard work because I had a good 2 or 3 hours of work before I went to school in the morning. And I was lucky the grade school was only a mile away. So if I missed the bus and the bus kind of went the wrong way, I could run to the grade school faster than taking the bus.
Oh,
Bus
gee.
would take 20 minutes and I could run up there in 5 or 6 minutes, right?
Oh wow.
Sorry about
Yeah.
noise. But
No, you're good.
uh, so at a young age, I knew hard work really well. And my dad had been a pretty good athlete. When I was in high school, my dad was still number 4 or 5 on the mile times, and he'd went to school in 53, 52, and this was the mid 70s, and my dad was still number 5 on the list or number 4 on the
On
list.
the 1 mile run.
On the 1 mile, on the
Okay.
1 mile run, he'd run like a 4:20 or something like that way back then, which was
Wow.
really good. And that's on gravel tracks. It's not on the bouncy, nice, really cool
Yeah.
tracks we have nowadays.
Yeah, yeah.
So he was quite an athlete that way. And I remember asking him how to be world champion. And it's probably the most honest thing he ever said to me. And he said, I don't know.
He said,
And he said, but I do know one thing. He said, all world champions start with running. And if you want to be world champion, I was about 11. And they said, you better start running now. And every day you better run up that store and back at least maybe 2 or 3 times. And the store was it's a little country store, held about 5 people. And uh, it was about a mile and a third away. And so I started running
every day.
and doing that shit. Well,
Yeah.
not every day, but
Okay.
a lot of days.
Yeah.
And went to the same school as my dad up until I was a sophomore. And I liked wrestling and cross country. So I got into wrestling and cross
Okay.
country, and I did like my sophomore year. I was undefeated in my weight class, but I was behind the state champion,
Mm.
and I just saw him. This is really funny too because I hadn't seen him in 40 years, and I just saw him this summer, and he said I was the only guy to ever pin him. And I never knew that. I don't remember pinning him, but they said in practice I did. And I
In
remember,
practice.
yeah,
Okay.
but it woke up my memory, and I remember that
Okay.
fucking
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
dream now, right? And
But this guy was like the best.
he
Like
was the
good.
best. He was
good.
always 1 or 2 in the state. You know, he was
Yeah.
really, really good. It's a
Yeah.
big school, you know, and then the next year I had to go to a different school because my dad, we sold all the dairy cows and my dad started being a carpenter and building houses. So I went to 3 different high schools.
Oh,
That's
geez.
not really good. That's really hard on you because every kid
Yeah.
hates you. And then if you come to the next school and I was a good wrestler and I could beat their varsity wrestler, nobody liked me. And then
'Cause
I
you were
was
the new guy.
I was in a
Yeah.
family where my dad had been divorced and my dad was quite a partier and had a girlfriends and so it was kind of a hard place to move from. And my grandma had been a school teacher at this school for 42 years, my second high school. So you had the legend of my dad, the legend of my grandma, and my uncle who went to the school.
Mm.
And then the next year I had to go to a different high school.
Oh, jeez.
So
3 high
three different
schools.
high schools. You know,
That's
you're trying
wild.
to be state champ at something. You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
trying really hard, and then you're going to a different coach. They have a different mentality. And then I was a really hyperactive kid, man. I would just get up and walk out of class because I couldn't sit here anymore because you know, I grew up on a farm doing all these things, and we're not learning anything in school that's teaching us how to build a fire in the rain.
I see.
They're not teaching us how to butcher a cow. They're not teaching us how to artificially inseminate. They're not teaching you how to garden. I was lucky
Yeah.
in my sophomore year of school, we had a vocational agriculture program, so you could do that, and there was always 4-H and Future Farmers of America and all that kind of stuff. But I remember as a kid seeing the TV show. The movie Singing in the Rain, and I watched that guy dance in the rain, Gene Kelly, and I decided I was going to be a dancer because I didn't like farming.
Oh my God.
Now, I'm back on a farm now, but we'll go back. And so anyway, I took off and I one day just put on a backpack and I had $49 and some binoculars and a sleeping
But
bag and
this
and I decided
this is after high school.
yeah. My
What
senior
what
year-
did you
my, my senior year I was 4th in the state and I weighed 129.
Holy crap!
So I
So you
went,
wrestled. You took 4th in the state.
yeah, I took 4th in the state at 129 and
Running.
had a broken thumb, so that's my excuse. But my hand was taped, so I couldn't use the no grip on the left
Yeah.
hand, so it was really hard. But anyway,
You did the run to the cross
yeah,
country.
and I cross country. I used cross country as a way to get in shape for wrestling, and I never lost an overtime match in my life. I always had great cardio just because I grew up on the farm and the field was over a quarter mile, it's like a third of a mile back. So you got to run all the way to the back of the field, chase all the cows in. Sometimes the cows don't want to go in, so you got to chase them all over the place. So you're always
see.
growing up
Yeah.
doing stuff. And then there's rope swings, and so I've always had a big rope swing. So by the time I was 12, it's 29 feet from the floor to the rafters in the barn. And by the time I was 12, I could sit on the floor and go straight to the top on
Wow.
the rope without my legs.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
just because I could just do it because my dad told me I could do that easy when I was doing. My dad was always twice as strong as me. So
Right.
and I asked my dad what the best he ever did, and he got really mad at my response because he said, "Well, I was 17th in the nation once, and I'd already been second in the world." And I go, "I wouldn't even tell anybody that." I was kind of being a dick because my dad was a dick. So anyway,
That's fine. So then you so all that then you went.
so then
senior year, you
so then
decided
I
to
moved,
leave.
and I moved to from Southwest Washington up to Seattle, and
Okay.
I eventually got a job at a nightclub. I was in a nightclub one night, and And I didn't have any money at all. I'm working at a Denny's or something, washing dishes. I'm going to Highline Community
How old are you?
College.
Like 18,
I'm
19?
19, 20,
Okay.
20. And the only reason I went to Highline Community College because it was near where my mom lived and I could crash on her couch and they had a wrestling program.
Okay.
So I get there, I do that, then they drop the wrestling program and in the first year. But anyway, in working at the Denny's and doing the wrestling, I met this guy who was 1978 Mr. Teenage America. His name was Robbie Tappan. And in 1978, he was 18 years old and he had 18-inch biceps. He was just the epitome, blonde hair, blue eyes, and huge legs and just amazing. And that's where I learned how to lift weights. That's where I learned my basic training and
showed
everything. And
you.
he'd trained with Arnold for 6 or 8 weeks or something. Said he learned a lot from Arnold. And this was in 1978.
Okay.
And this is in a Federal Way area by Seattle. And so I started training with him, and I went from 140 pounds. I got to 165, 175 pounds,
Okay.
and I understand what being stronger was.
And obviously you weren't taking anything at the time, right?
Oh shit! I didn't know
Yeah.
anything about anything back then. You know
You
what I
just
mean?
lift. You just
And
lift,
we,
and
we,
that
we,
was
we
it.
didn't think the body could tell the difference between an ice cream calorie and a beef calorie.
That's right.
So we were
Yeah.
eating ice cream.
Yeah. Right.
You know,
Exactly.
so,
Yeah.
so we didn't understand a whole lot about it, and it was chest, shoulders, triceps, back bicep, and leg and ab day, right?
Yeah.
And you did the 3-day split, and then you took one day off, and you were back at it.
Yeah.
And then I started hanging out with some really strong guys, and I learned a different idea on strength because strength was 2s and 3s and take a 5-minute break and 2s and 3s and move up every single time and so you're learning to be strong, but at the same time I was always really flexible and I was dancing. So I worked for a company called
Oh, you were
Comedy.
dancing.
I got a job for a company called Comedy Grams,
Yeah.
and I did a variety of things. Lawrence of Arabia, cop
Oh my
arresting
gosh.
you,
I
all these things, you know. And I
let's
brought
see
in
that.
1983, I did over 150 bachelorette parties in that year for the one company. Every
Wow.
day I had a party or two to do, it seemed like, because I did a lot of stuff freelance. And then because I had a nighttime job in a nightclub, some people from Merv Griffin saw me dancing, and this nightclub had decided that they had 4 nightclubs in Seattle called the Raintree Corporation. So they pay me $25 an hour to be there at 9 o'clock. These are 4-star restaurants. I got really nice food. I got free food. I got a VIP booth. I got $100 tab at the bar. At the time, I didn't even drink. And I just put girls up there and fed them drinks. And anyway, and then my job was to ask girls to dance.
Okay.
And so the music would start at 9 o'clock to 12:30, and my job was to keep dancing the
Just
whole time.
dance.
And then eventually I hired other guys to work with me. And then I put a crew of guys together because, like, Michael Jackson was doing songs. Billy Idol was a big act that I did. And we would impersonate these stars, but we could all dance. I
Okay.
mean, Michael could dance, but Billy Idol's not much of a dancer and all. And Huey
Right.
Lewis and all these other people we did. So I eventually put together this group that we had guitar players, drummer, everybody, and nobody could tell that we weren't playing. And
Okay.
I was still doing the athletics. In 1983, I entered the NAWA World Arm Wrestling Championships at 165,
Okay.
and didn't know what the hell I was doing. I was just farm
You
boy
just jumped in
strong,
it.
and I just wanted to. Yeah, you could enter, and there wasn't anything online, but somebody called me and told me, Steve, they're having a big tournament, and so I entered, and I made it all the way to the finals, and
Oh, wow.
then they had a 2-hour break, and I decided to go drink some Old English 800
Oh my
because
gosh.
that sure makes you quicker. Drinking a depressant doesn't make you quicker.
It doesn't make you quicker. I was gonna say it does. So then, basically, let me
So I got
guess. You
flashed on my
lost.
next match. I
You
ended up
lost.
6th in the world.
Okay.
Then I'm back dancing, and these guys had seen me dancing and seen these acts that I put together, and they called me and said, "Hey, man, we have a club in Hawaii too, and we want you to go to
Oh.
Hawaii and
Okay.
star in this show." And so I came to Hawaii, 2 shows a night dancing.
Wait, what year was this?
1987.
Oh,
And
okay. Okay.
right
I
on
just
Kuhio
graduated high
Street,
school.
2201 Kuhio. It was across from Scruples.
No, I
They
know
were
where
their
that
major
is.
competition. We were
I know where
upstairs. It
2201
eventually
is.
became it eventually became pure platinum, totally titanium.
Yeah.
It turned into, but
Oh
it was a
no.
two-leveled velvet lounge,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, gourmet dinners, and so
Yeah.
we did
Yeah.
2 dinner shows. And so then, um, when you're on stage, you can't see who's out there, you know.
Yeah.
And my acts were pretty out there, and so um, I get this call from somebody who claims that they're Dolly Parton's agent or something.
Okay.
And so then we have a guy managing the show, and I turned it over to him, and I got hired to do the Dolly Parton show. So I got hired to pretend to be Billy Idol at the Dolly Parton show.
Really? Where
And
was
when
that at?
it was at Dockside Plantation in Hawaii Kai when she opened her restaurant in 1987 for Halloween. And I was on the front page of the Honolulu Advertiser as Billy Idol because everybody thought I was Billy Idol. And I would get out of the show and walk down the streets in Waikiki at about midnight or 1, right when we got out. And I would go over to the Jazz Cellar
Yeah.
dressed as Billy Idol. And people would
Okay.
just think I was Billy Idol. And I played the
Really?
role really, really well.
Oh my God.
And so then from there, when I did a Dolly Parton show, I didn't know what to do. I'd never been invited by a movie star to do anything, and I'm like, I arrived. There's all these cameras, and everybody's and all these movie stars are around, and I recognize a bunch of people, and I just see this big line. I guess I'm supposed to go get in line, and everybody's pacing around up front, and I'm standing in line, and they're all pacing around because my dumbass was supposed to go up front, and they were looking for me and thought I was late.
Oh my God. You're
So
standing in
here's
line.
the first gig I ever get.
You're
and
standing in line
I'm
instead
standing
of
in line,
going
like
to the
number
front. Right.
149 in line, ain't even going to get in,
Oh,
right?
geez, Steve.
And Dolly Parton comes walking down the line, and I'm with my girlfriend at the time, and she walks down the line, and she goes, "Mr. English, we've been waiting for you." And she goes, "Honey, are you with him? Okay, we have a table for you when you come in, but he's going to go now, okay? Okay." And she grabs me by the chains and drags me up to the front
Oh my
of the
God,
line.
Steve.
And she was so cool. And she says, "You're right here." She goes, "Tom, this is Billy Idol. He's in front of you." And I turn and look, and this guy's about 6'5", and it's Tom Selleck, and he's the first guy going in. And they put me in front of him, and Tom Selleck says to me, he goes, he's looking down at me because
Yeah.
people don't realize how big Tom Selleck is. And and he says, "I've seen your show. You're pretty good. You're sitting with us." And so I went in and I got to
Okay.
sit with Tom Selleck and the whole Magnum
my
crew all
gosh.
night, you know,
All
and all
right.
this stuff had happened. And then
That's great.
other things happened, and I decided I didn't really like show business, and I
Mm.
had other ideas, and I was skydiving at the time, and jumping out of airplanes, and I was getting really close to being world arm wrestling champion, and
Wait, so you had been doing arm wrestling the whole time?
oh yeah,
after
yeah,
that?
always every time there was a tournament, every time anything was happening.
Who were you training
and,
with, though?
and
Like,
then
were
well,
you
I just
training
started
alone?
training with friends, and then I was just doing things that I had a little gym set up in my house, and then there was a guy named Siegfried, or not. There was a guy out of Australia who was
Mm.
here, and he was running all the arm wrestling. I'll think of his name in a second. And
But were you lifting too still? Or was it?
I was just lifting intermittently and not much, and I hadn't really. The
Okay.
problem with I lifted really a whole bunch for about 4 years on the road, and got really good at it, and everything was. I mean, I eventually got up to about 200 pounds from 135, 140.
Yeah.
But here's what I looked like. I had 18-inch arms, and I had 21-inch thighs.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah.
And they on the beach
I see
they
it.
called me Baby Huey.
I see it.
So-
Yeah.
So back then, you know, I had like a 30-inch waist, you know. So,
Right.
and so
Big
I would,
arms. Yeah.
well, I would tell people I don't need legs to arm wrestle.
That's
But,
true.
you know, but that's really kind of that's really not true. The legs eventually helped a lot when I went on and became world champion, and I didn't understand it at the time because there was a lot of things I still had to learn.
Okay.
And the dancing taught me a whole bunch of things about balance and so on and so forth. And then it teaches you about consistency. You're on a stage tonight with bright lights. It's a round stage. There's no fence. It's about 8 feet straight down to a hardwood floor, and there's nothing to stop you from going off of it. You
Right.
can't see anybody who's out there. So you learned a whole bunch of things. And I was always thinking I was Bruce Lee, and I always had my nunchucks with me, and I could whip them so fast they were just invisible, and they just made a whirring sound. And I was
Yeah,
really,
yeah.
really good at it.
That's
And,
awesome.
So I quit for a couple of years, and I just went to the North Shore, and I had a house on the beach. It was loaded with girls, and I just skydived every day. And in fact, there was 3 girls living there, and they paid me enough rent that I made money.
Oh
So
man.
the
Wait,
rent
was this still the 80s or was
this
it
was 88, right after
okay,
right
right
after the
after
show.
that
Yeah,
thing?
right after
Okay.
the show. And
Yeah.
I lived out in Mokuleia.
Oh wow.
And so three girls paid me 600 a month.
You
And the
covered the
rent
rent.
was 1,400 a month. And then they split the electricity with me. So every month I'm making $500-600.
So you didn't have to
And
pay
then
rent.
plus I had other privileges too,
That's a
because I'm
lot
the only
back
guy
then.
in the
Yeah.
house.
That's a lot back then.
That's a lot back then.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
it was a house. It was a 1 block from the beach, and so it was just you
Oh
could
yeah.
walk right down to the beach,
Oh, okay.
Waialua, right there in Mokuleia. And so it was a really good gig, and that's when I got back into the arm wrestling again. And I took off and I went to the 1990 World Championships in Los Angeles, California, and I had just been training with people. We just got a table from somebody. And so we didn't really know how to use a table or anything, but we just practiced every day, just making shit up.
Yeah.
And I went to the World Championships and I finished like fifth in the world. And to finish fifth in the World Championships without ever having a coach or really being taught how to arm wrestle, and I had a weak wrist. I'd always lose my wrist, but I was just strong. I didn't care. You're not going to break my wrist
So
off. And
you think a lot of that though is from just your pure strength that you had. That was from growing up on the farm, just your because it wasn't you didn't get that strength from like training that much. It was
No,
just
it
you
had
kind
to
of
be.
had
Well,
it.
it's two things. It was first of all mental. Because
Mm.
when I watched Bruce Lee do his things, and when I saw Arnold do his poses, and Captain Kirk's judo chop, and I forgot
Yeah.
probably
I
my
love it.
biggest hero of all, Muhammad Ali,
Yeah.
and how Muhammad Ali threw his jab, I understood that things need to be technically correct.
Okay.
And so that was kind of the beginning of me looking for the truth rather than just trying to lift a bunch of weight and stack shit on. And you see a
Yeah.
lot of people do. They don't understand that a little bit of technique goes a hell of a lot farther than
But
anything.
there's something to be said about growing up on the farm and stuff, though, and all that.
Yeah.
We talked about a podcast or
Right.
two ago about young kids
120-pound
doing.
bales of hay when
Yeah.
I weigh
see,
when I weigh
I was making
100
the same
pounds.
argument on that show.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
Well, and it's a mental thing too, right? Because you grew up understanding hard work
Yeah,
and you got to
yeah,
push
and so
yourself.
it's easy.
So it's mentally you're
It's
used to pushing yourself.
all
yeah,
those
it's
farm
way
kids
easy.
have like a ridiculous base strength compared to
Yeah.
like your everyday
way
city
way
boy.
different
Yeah.
because I remember I was wrestling at 101 pounds, so I weighed 101, and I was about 5'4", 5'5", and we had to unload a 20-ton truck of 3-pound alfalfa bales, and that bales average between 120 and 135 pounds.
Yeah.
They're 3-string wire, and you got to pick them
Oh,
up, and
those
they
things.
all weigh more than me, and you've got to be able to put them places.
Sucks.
And we could unload this truck in 3 or 4 hours, and that's just two of us. And my friend that I did it with, because he lived on the farm down the street, our farm got there in the 1890s. His farm got there in the 1880s, and so we're still friends. Our families are still friends after 100 and some flipping almost 150 years, right? And so
Wow.
him and me together, and we were on the wrestling team together. We had endurance like nobody did, and hand strength. And I learned to use my hand
That's
strength.
yeah.
I learned to use it because other people didn't understand what an advantage it was, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And so, like for the jujitsu, when I later did the jujitsu and all that, that was just made it really kill. But
That's crazy. Yeah.
getting back to coming here and after the nightclub show and stuff, skydiving taught me something really, really important too. It taught me that life is like this quick, man. If you can't make decisions really, really quick, you're dead. And I got about 600 or 700 jumps, not really very
Oh,
many,
I didn't know that.
out here in Sky. Well, my friends
wow.
have 20,000 jumps, and so
Yeah.
I'm nobody. But I have a lot of jumps out there. I have more naked jumps than they do, so I win there. So.
Of course. Crickets.
I looked better naked.
Why am I
That's
not
true.
surprised?
That was the 90s.
I was gonna say, why am I not surprised? There was
But
probably other things you were doing. At
Oh
the
yeah,
time,
yeah,
too.
crazy. But anyway, and so in about 90 or 91, I started doing jujitsu in a little studio, Shobokan Dojo up in Lily Hall, and I only trained there for a short while, maybe 6 months or more. And I was a wrestler, not a judo guy for sure. And learning judo was hard on the wrists and elbows, and I was arm wrestling a lot. So anyway, one of the instructors there said that he talked to me about Helson Gracie,
Mm.
and he tried to explain. He says the Gracie Jiu-Jitsu style is for you, Mr. English. He goes, this is totally judo's not really your thing, and you just do really well at this. I was beating a lot of the judo guys was just my wrestling because I had a great takedown. I never got
Yeah.
taken down my senior year in high school, and I was really good at takedowns. And
see.
so they would always raise their hands, and I'd raise my hands like we're going to do. No, I'm not doing judo.
You just do like a double leg or something.
double leg or
Single
single
leg.
trip or
Single-
whatever,
yeah, yeah,
fireman's,
Yeah,
whatever
yeah,
it was, because I
right.
was really good at that.
Okay.
And Shobokan was a great school, but they wanted you to learn there's 75 throws left and right, and I have to learn the Japanese word for each one.
You didn't want to do
And
it.
no, and I didn't want to do that.
Yeah.
And really, honestly, the instructor there was just a great guy, man. And he was right. Jiu-jitsu was where I needed to go.
Oh, I see.
And so I started jiu-jitsu, and at about that time, I had met one of the strongest guys in the world at that time, Curtis Leffler. And
Yep.
he was working out in the gym next to me and stuff. And he was a monster, man. 6'2", 320, and 5% body fat. No fat. I've never seen that guy fat. He was huge. But I went to Japan in 92 and I took second in the world. I didn't know how to diet, and I cut water out of my diet. This was the first year that I started getting technical on things where I really tried to improve the technical aspect of what I was doing. I wasn't trying to just, go in like a crazy man, because for that I was just a farmer, just go, I'm going to go in and shove as hard as I can and go, but you're not knowing exactly where to shove, right?
Yeah.
And I went to Japan, and I had the guy that I beat the year before down. They could have called a match anytime, and they did. And I decided I was going to roll his hand out because I was already so close. And when I did that, I slipped and he got my hand, and I lost the match.
Oh, jeez.
And I took second in the world. And I was so pissed, man. God, made me cry right now. I'm so fucking mad.
Because how long were you training for that?
Well,
Like, how many years had you been training before you got to that tournament?
Well, I decided like in about 85 or something like that I was going to be world champ. 84, I decided there's no way I was going to somehow win the world arm wrestling championships, because I just knew I could win these guys. And I'm not a guy that follows the sport, and I didn't understand how to use video or anything like that to my advantage to see what other guys do, because I didn't care. I just figured I was going to beat them anyway, because that's what I'm going to do. And so when I came back from Japan that time, I was definitely motivated. And I locked myself in the gym for a whole year. And I went out to one party, one rave,
Okay.
and everybody asked me why I was so pale. And I was spending about 6 hours a day
Arm
in
wrestling.
golds.
Just arm wrestling every day.
Just arm wrestling. And I was lifting, doing everything I
Lifting
could.
and arm wrestling.
Everything, yeah, but I wasn't doing any squats or anything yet.
Mm.
You know what I mean? And I'll get to why that is such a huge thing. And so anyway,
But you weren't at this time. You weren't, because the jiu-jitsu came
the
what year?
jiu-jitsu came in 84.
In 84,
or 94, excuse
Sorry,
me, 94.
okay, 94.
94.
So this
And
was still arm
so
wrestling,
the
right.
so yeah, the jiu-jitsu was 92, 93. And then because I tweaked my knee in judo. And so I had to take like about 6 months out. And in that time, that was 93. Now I'm remembering. And then I saw the UFC. And before the UFC, Ode Hogan, who's one of the world's most famous grip strength guys, strong men, so on and so forth. He's exactly 10 years older than me. He was there, and he had arm wrestled me, and I tweaked his arm, and he let me run my classes in the gym there. So
I remember seeing you.
Yeah, and so I asked Ode, I said, because there's all these guys had all this crazy art, guys are claiming they could kill you with one shot, and and all and back then nobody knew, but I knew wrestlers would probably beat them all up because I was a wrestler, and I'd hardly never lost a fight in my life, and so I'm just a better wrestler, and I bite, so that helps.
Yeah. Well, street fight,
wrestling and biting.
So that was your technique.
Anyway, Ode said to me that he thought the skinny Brazilian was going to win. And then I looked at all this stuff these guys said that they were doing and stuff, and and it was everything was made up anyway. We found out, 30 years later.
Yeah.
They said that Hoist Gracie was 50-1, and he'd never had a fight in his life. This is his first fight
Yeah.
ever. It's the first
Yeah.
fight he'd ever
Right.
made,
Right.
period.
Right.
And all these other guys had been in fights before, and Hoist had just had a good life. And
Yeah.
his older brother, Helson, who I eventually trained under, was the street fighter,
I
undefeated for
remember.
20
I
years.
remember
and
the story on that.
he's a
Yeah.
bad mofo.
So he was the actual tough one,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, and so so after
Yeah.
seeing that, I searched out Helson Gracie, and I went and trained under Helson Gracie, and
What year you met Helson? In what year?
1994.
Yeah, because I met Helson when he first moved here. I want to say was it like 87, 88?
Somebody told me that, yeah,
And because
I
one
didn't
of
know
my
it then.
one of my buddies was friends with Helson's friend.
Yeah,
And this guy was like a little bit older. I was like 18, 19. These
right.
guys like this guy was like 20 something. And I remember because it's so funny. I remember meeting him, man, and this was in the 80s, right? And he was just like, and he looked like a mean dude. Like, and I remember the guy was like, "Oh, hey, this is Helson. He's gonna do this jujitsu thing." And I was like, "Oh, I had no idea what that was, right?" And I was like, "Oh, I know what judo is, but not jujitsu."
Right.
And he's like, "Hey, we got these videotapes. We're gonna put these videotapes you can watch because they used to do in
Yeah.
Brazil."
Yeah,
So we put
Valley Tudo.
the Vale Tudo.
Tudo.
We
Yeah.
put those videotapes on at this guy's house, and we were watching. And then I was like, "Oh, these guys are animals, man. This ain't no joke, you
Yeah.
know." Like
Yeah.
that was before the UFC and all that. So I remember, and
I
Helson
saw-
never talked a whole lot back then. He just kind of sat there and was
Nope.
like,
Nope.
and I was like, "Yeah, I'm good, dude." Like I was still bodybuilding, and I
Right.
was moving from Hawaii anyway, so
Yeah.
I never trained with him. But but I was like,
Well, the two
you
are kind
could
of hard to do
tell.
together.
Well,
Yeah,
yeah, and I wasn't at the time. I already knew I was going to do bodybuilding, but I was interested in that. But I was
Yeah.
like, I was moving, you know.
I
So
saw all those videos. I used to watch those too.
all those
And
the black and
then
white ones and stuff.
Helson's
Yeah.
house caught on fire, and all those videos got
Oh, they
burned
all got
up,
burned?
man,
Oh,
and it was so
man.
sad. But anyway, when I met Helson Gracie, so I'm doing arm wrestling, which 92 I get second, and so I just lock myself in the gym, and then what was Steve D'Amato, who's running Golds.
Yeah.
I'm in there 6 hours a day, and he comes up to me and he goes, "Dude, you're spending way too much time in here, man. You're overtraining. You're overtraining." And
Okay.
I didn't care that I was overtraining because I could train harder longer. I knew I could train
Yeah.
harder longer. But in that whole series of things going on, I was talking to a friend of mine in Vancouver, Washington, he just won the world championships, and he was a wrestler too. And I was a lot better wrestler than him, but he was really good at explaining things technically.
Okay.
And he'd won the world championships, I think, before me. And so he said to me, "Come over here for a couple weeks, work with me." He goes, "You're the strongest guy I've ever pulled with. You just don't know what the hell you're doing."
Okay.
And so this is after I won the 92, and then I see the jujitsu, and so I'm in the jujitsu class. And then anyway, I fly to Battleground, Washington, and I train with him for 2 weeks, and I come back, and I'm training with Helson, and we got about 5 months before the world championships, and I'm arm wrestling too. So you're arm wrestling 2 nights a week, and then you're jujitsu almost every night of the
Yeah.
week. And arm wrestling and jujitsu have a lot in common. You're always trying to extend a lever, and you're pulling, and so.
It worked
Anyway,
out.
that year was a great year. I got my blue belt in 40 days, and Helson said that'd been the quickest of anybody ever in his lifetime. And I have a really good affinity for balance and grappling. I don't have to think about it too much. And then I went to the World Championships, and I smoked everybody in the world. I didn't have a match over 2 seconds. And my first match was the 4-time world champion who dusted me 2 years before that. And then my third guy was the 12-time world champion, and I walked right through them all because I learned what I was doing wrong. And it was real simple, just hand manipulation and not keeping my hand up on top and allowing people to allow my wrist.
This was in the arm wrestling.
Yeah,
right?
the arm wrestling, right? So
right.
I'd done some tournaments in jujitsu.
Right.
But
you were focused on the arm
yeah, I was just
wrestling,
focused on
yeah.
arm wrestling. And so then we come back to the jujitsu, and I think I took second in the state in jujitsu.
Okay.
And then I put all my focus into lifting. And in 90, later in 94, no, in 85, training was going real good, and I broke my knee. Not training, I stepped off a stage, and there was nothing there, and stepped down
Oh,
about 3 feet.
jeez.
Blah blah. It was horrible. They were really bad. So that took me like about a year to recover from. And right after I got out of that, I'm back in the gym. And one day, Curtis Leffler, the giant guy who was always in the gym, I was watching work out. He comes and stands, and I'm doing curls with, I don't know, 80, 90 pounds, something. And he comes up and stands next to me. He grabs a 120 pounder and just curls it like it's nothing. And he puts it down. He looks at me and he goes, "If you want to learn how to be strong," he goes, "my partner just moved. I need somebody to load and unload the weights. That's the deal. You load and unload the weights. I don't ever touch a weight." And he said, "I'll teach you how to be strong." And he told me to be there at 10 o'clock the next day. I was there at 9:30. And
That's so funny. He's like, "You're gonna learn a
oh,
lot."
his arms at the time were bigger than my legs.
Yeah.
So, and
Curtis,
he
that's
made
what
a
he did.
120 look like a 20-pound dumbbell. It was just nothing. It was just so easy. And that changed the whole direction in my life. And I went from being a probably benching 250 or something, 275, I think. And inside of 2 years, I was knocking on 500.
Yeah, wow.
And between him and Lynn Silbert,
Yeah.
who was a great trainer, I learned technique, and that what that did is that taught me in my arm wrestling a whole bunch of things that I didn't understand at first. And I was starting to do a lot of heavy squats, and the squats helped me so much in arm wrestling for my explosive power, and then learning to use my feet on the ground as a base and what angles to pull from. And arm wrestling really, if it's done correctly, it's a pulling sport. You're trying to pull and you're trying to extend you're trying to extend the lever, because the farther the lever goes out, the weaker it gets.
Right.
So when you start learning that, and then elbow rotation inward, when you rotate your elbow inward, your tricep and lat can actually work together and they're not independent. And when you start learning all these things, and then once you get that lat, then all of a sudden you squeeze your glute, you go, "Oh, wow, that engages my lower lumbar, hooks right into my lat." And wow, all of a sudden, "Oh, I feel my hamstring, I feel my foot." And all of a sudden, when you pull a guy's arm, it came from your foot, and their arm just goes like butter. It just,
Yeah.
you understand how everything works in series. And then it's not just trying to understand that, but then because I was always going to the world championships, and you're competing at a really, really super high level. So any mistakes you made are giantly magnified. And then you get to learn from all these other people. And usually 99% of the time, everybody's very friendly in athletic sports where you actually compete, or you're insane.
Yeah.
And bodybuilding, not so much sometimes.
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
bodybuilding, yeah.
you know what I'm
That's,
saying.
yeah.
But so it was really interesting because this was all by accident. It wasn't like I had a plan in
Okay.
a book or anything like that.
Yeah.
And then what got really funny is I took a team in 96. I had been still kept the arm wrestling going. I was arm wrestling all the time, but I wasn't competing anymore. I'd won the world middleweight and I didn't care anymore. I said, "Oh, that's all I wanted to do is be the world champ." And I did it. And I never had a thought about being world champ again or anything, but I'd gained a substantial amount of weight because the world middleweight's 185. And now I'm weighing 210, something like that. And I've done a couple strongman. You saw me in the strongman. And I was the lightest guy always in the strongman. I was like 212 in 96.
Okay.
But anyway, in 1996, I took the Hawaii guys to the World Championships again in LA, and we sponsored. My company sponsored, helped sponsor the World Championship. We bought trophies for heavyweights or something, and then the next year we bought trophies for super heavyweights. So to take the weight off the promoters and get our name out there, And
Yeah.
so we show up in LA, and
What
the
year was
guys.
this? What year was
What?
this?
1996.
Okay.
So 1996, and they said that we could have two teams, 4-man teams. So there's a team championship plus your individual medals, right? So we all competed. So the guys are yelling at me, "Come on, you got to compete, you got to compete." And I'm like, I retired 2 years ago. They go, "Man, but we got 8 guys with you, and that's 2 teams." And I look at
Oh.
everybody, and I'm like, all right, and there was no stress on me at all because I didn't come there to compete. I had no idea. I was really, really strong then, amazingly strong, so much stronger than before, thanks to Curtis. That was a whole different level. I was 2 or 3 levels up. And I mean, you just know the levels when you start
Yeah.
traveling through them. And
Hmm.
I remember just laughing about it when I went to bed and I slept easy. And every world championship before that, there'd been 7 or 8. I did not sleep good the night before, man. I'm,
Mm.
trying to sleep, and
Yeah.
trying not to worry about shit and trying just to think, take it when it happens. It ain't now, right? But that's another thing. That's a really, really important thing to learn is how to put that away, get your sleep, wake up, bring it back out, focus on it. You've got to be able to put it away. And that takes a
Yeah.
long time. It's harder for some people than others. But that world championship was the same thing as the world middleweight championship. I dusted everybody. I didn't have a match over a couple seconds, and everybody got kind of mad at me because I couldn't believe, first of all, that I won because the guys were. I always looked up to these dudes, and
And you beat all of those guys.
I told the reporter, and I didn't even realize what I said until it was in the paper, that it was
What?
like arm wrestling a bunch of big girls.
Oh,
And I
you said
didn't.
that.
You know me. I
Yeah.
can't shut my mouth right.
So
And I didn't even know.
these
And it's
guys
in
were
the
pissed.
it's in the flipping
These guys were
paper.
pissed.
Oh, they're all pissed and they're cracking up because I dusted them easy.
Oh, I
Yeah,
see.
it was
Oh,
they
yeah,
already knew
yeah.
it wasn't like
So
I'm
you
like,
so you were able to back it, obviously, right? Yeah, yeah.
well, it was.
Yeah.
I didn't say it on purpose. It just came
Just
out
kind
of
of came out like
my mouth.
so it was that easy for you then. I mean,
It was
you just
really
felt like you were like, is there
It was
somebody
really, really well. I could feel every single thing they were doing wrong because
Yeah.
I've been teaching now for 5 years, pretty solid, right?
Uh-huh.
And so and then I really started to understand articulation and the powerlifting work with Curtis.
I see.
Really helped me out. And then working with Lynn, it helped me understand from my foot to my ass. And people never learn to engage their ass in arm wrestling. But if you want your body to be a solid lever and be able to pull back and not hinge here, you better squeeze your butt.
Okay.
And you better squeeze your butt on every single exercise you do, because otherwise you've just got a rubbery, foundation. There's
Mhm.
nothing going on there.
Yeah.
And so that was like probably the biggest and greatest thing I picked up. So at that time, I was benching like 430, 440, something like that.
Oh wow.
And then I got a wild hair up my butt, and I decided I wanted to move to Central America for 3 years. And
Oh god.
so I quit lifting weights, went to Central America. The next year, I get a call from the Hawaii team. They want me to meet them in LA. They want me to coach them. All right, I haven't arm wrestled all year. I was a world champion rum drinker, and Cuba Libre. Anyway, I get to LA. It's the same thing. They want to do 2 teams again. I haven't arm wrestled all year. And I'm like, ah,
You haven't done it at all.
nothing,
Wow.
nothing
Okay.
at all. So anyway, I go talk to the lady. She goes, "What do you weigh?" Gets on the scale. You got to weigh 232, Steve. You don't weigh close to enough. I said, "Okay, who paid for all the trophies?" She goes, "It's your arm." And she signed the waiver, and they let
How
me
heavy were
compete.
you? 200?
I was about 220 or 218.
Oh, so you're under.
Yeah, so you got to be
You got to be 230 and above.
232 and above.
So there's guys that are
big fuckers.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
anyway, I always looked at it this way. See, it doesn't matter what sport to me. The super heavyweights are slow and they have no endurance. And I always knew that I was almost as strong, if not stronger, than anybody anyway. I just felt that way inside, right? It
Mhm.
doesn't mean that I could lift the same thing, but in a grappling match, I was always right there. So, anyway, I wrestled all year. Somehow I make it to the finals, and I got to face the guy that I beat for the world championship last year when I was in really good shape. And he'd went up to the other weight class to get away from me. And I just went there because I tried to help my guys make 2 teams. And we ended up winning the world team championships.
Oh,
And
geez.
anyway, I decided that I was going to trick this guy, in all my great grandeur, not arm wrestling in a year. And I was going to do a different technique. And he decided the exact same thing. And so we both did this. The year before, I had pulled back on him and just called over the top and set him down. And this time, we both decided to go through the middle. And when you do that, it's easy to break an arm.
Oh.
And we went, and I mean, we're so close in quickness and everything, and
Okay.
strength. And
Yeah.
he's a big guy. And we go through the middle, man. And all of a sudden, I feel something. I just let go.
You felt it.
I felt my arm was going to break.
Oh,
But
really?
But he
Wait, how big was
let
this
go.
guy?
He let go at almost the exact same time as me.
Uh-huh.
And I just stepped back and they declared him the winner. And he goes, no, 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 I gave up first. I gave up. My arm was breaking.
Oh, so you guys were both at the
We
same
both felt
time.
our arm breaking and let go because neither one of us had ever broke our arm before. We never felt this, but
That
we knew what it
feeling.
was because we'd seen it. You know, it's always in your head,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Especially when you go through the middle. And we just let go. And
How big was this guy?
he's over 230, so
Okay.
you know he's
Yeah.
5'10". He's a big guy.
Yeah.
I don't think he was over 250 though.
Okay.
But anyway,
They
we
gave you it. They
yeah.
gave you the-
Well, I took second. I said, they asked, "Do you want to go again?" I don't want to go again, man. I'm fine, man. I won the world championship last year, a couple of years back, and my arm almost broke. And the only thing I didn't do in arm wrestling. So in arm wrestling, from 165 up, I was either first or second in the world in every single division. So I, at that moment, just said to myself, the only thing left is to break your arm, and I don't want to be in that crew. And I just said, nope, you got it, bro. I
Yeah.
give him the biggest hug,
You're
man.
like, we're good.
We felt good. We're both good on it. You know what I mean? And it was awesome, man. And
That's
so
wild.
I go back to Costa Rica, and I do what I always do: chase women and then hit the beaches. And so I spent another 2 years being a Casanova, and one day I wake up broke and kind of
Oh,
fat.
yeah.
And I'm like, wow, shit, what am I going to do now? So anyway, I get my shit together and I go back up to Camas and hang out with my dad over the summer. My dad he was building 3 or 4 houses, so I helped him with a bunch of houses. And one day I'm on the roof and it's gotten really cold. It was 38 degrees. The wind's blowing about 20 miles an hour, and it's blowing sleet, icy rain. And I'm on an 8x12 pitch, which is like this. I got
Mm,
track shoes on just so I can on the plywood because I got to
Yeah.
put the last strips of plywood on the top.
yeah.
And it's so cold, I keep hitting my finger and I'm swearing, and my fingers are swelled up and it's slippery. And my dad looks up at me and he goes, I bet after this you're going to go back to Hawaii. And I looked at him, I said, I bought the ticket 2 days ago.
He knew. He's like, he missed.
I'd
missed the
already bought
island.
the ticket. I figured
Yeah.
how long it was going to take me to help finish this shit. And I'm fucking
You're like,
out.
I'm
I'm
out.
going back to warm
Yeah,
weather.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I came back to Hawaii. Now, when I came back, I was totally broke. I didn't have no money, a couple $100 in my pocket, but I knew I had a bunch of friends here. And
And what year was this now?
this is 2000.
Okay.
And so I
Okay.
come back in 2000, and I don't remember exactly where I was living. I was living up in, I don't know, try to see 2000. I was living over by the university. Anyway, I got a little apartment over there because I got a job with a guy I know. His name was Jerry Snow. He's one of them big, strong Neanderthal red-haired guys, just naturally big and strong. Just
Yeah.
a 250-pound guy, was all his life, big hands. And he gave me a job and then managing some apartments and stuff. And then so I got back into lifting with Lynn.
Yeah.
And Lynn had trained Curtis a whole bunch. And I did the Windward Strongman contest, and now it's only a year of training, and somehow I won, and whatever. Anyway, I was done arm wrestling, and I just started training again, just nice and slow. So sometime around 2005, so for 4 or 5 years there, I'm just training and hanging out and doing things, and I, for some reason, my bench was getting really good. So I was up around, I think 2005 was the first year I benched 500. So at 45, I benched 500, and I was doing five plates is 495 basically. And so we put a nickel on each side, and I could do that raw. But I did that for about 6 months, and I'm getting 2 to 3 reps with it. And then I just decided that I went and bought a single bench shirt.
Yeah.
And I ran it through the washing machine on hot water about 8 or 9 times to make it kind of wore out. And I got it to where I could barely put it on by myself.
Oh,
I needed
yeah.
somebody to help me. You know how hard the bench shirts are to put on.
Yep.
I used to put them on Curtis. It'd take 20 minutes, and you're so tired just getting in the shirt.
Yeah.
You don't know if you could bench again
Yeah.
or not, man.
Those shirts were horrible.
And then so under Lynn, I got 565 for 2 with a single. And then I got a job in right around 2006, 2006. I was mentioning about 5, and then I decided I was going to go be world jiu-jitsu champion. Now I hadn't played jiu-jitsu since 1996, okay, and I really hadn't played it at all. And so I'm living in Kailua with my girlfriend, and she uh, her demise was this one statement. Don't you think your time's up?
He said
I
that.
looked at her
Oh,
and I
because
said,
you're like 40s and
yeah.
keep
And
us
then I
figuring
looked at her and I
why.
said, what'd you just say? And she goes, well, wouldn't it really be fair to all the other guys? And I'm just like, God, I married a dumbass. I mean, that's just what I thought right there. I mean, I'm going to go do something I've never done before. I haven't
Yeah.
haven't trained in it for over 10 years. And
Right.
you're saying my time's up? What the anyway, I walked down to the local dojo, and Jason Isaguari, and Jason kind of smiled and smirked at me too. I said, "You gonna help me do this?" And he said, "Sure, I'll help you do it, Steve."
Where was this at?
This is in Kailua,
Okay.
and so he's still got a little dojo down there. He's an awesome dude,
Yeah.
and so I trained with him and Joe McElhone and Bill Dorman and oh God, there's so many other guys I should say. I just can't think of anybody's names right now. Anyway, I got on a plane one day. From the day I said it, I had learned so much between arm wrestling and lifting on how to win. You know what I mean? On how to be the best you can be. Like the little things, like your wrist, that much you're losing right there. That's too much. Anything that uh, I went to Brazil
Mm.
and I didn't tell anybody, and I entered 2 divisions.
You didn't say nothing to them.
I didn't tell anybody what I was going to do. They knew I was going to go, and everybody said, "Good luck."
And you were what, like a blue belt time?
Blue belt,
Okay.
blue belt. I got my blue belt in my first 40 days, and then
Right.
I just
And then,
I just kept the blue. But I wasn't jiu-jitsu to me wasn't about the belts. I just loved grappling and having
Right,
fun
right,
and
right,
learning and
right.
hanging out with my buddies, and it's a good family of people. They like to barbecue and drink beer and hang out and
Oh,
have
yeah.
a good time. And so anyway, I went to Brazil and I won. And uh,
What was the tournament that you did?
what
What did you compete in? Or what was it?
I won the overall division and the heavyweight division.
I mean, what was the name of the actual tournament? Or
It was the Brazilian World Jiu-Jitsu, the IBIJ. There's only one back then, IBJJ or
okay.
something. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
one of the Gracie's runs it, I believe.
Oh, yeah.
And I won the blue belt, and I weighed in at like 212 or something like
Okay.
that. 212. Anyway, and then I did the overall. And so my bench press is still going really good. Everything's good. I mean, I've squatted over 800, so it was strong. I already knew. So now I was just trying to get better at things. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Because let's take this strength and apply it in the right direction. Because
Right.
in the wrong direction, you just break yourself. And
Yeah.
so I trained so hard the next year. I switched my training to the North Shore, and I trained with at the Boar's Nest with
Oh, that one.
with a bunch of super heavy. Thanks to Kai Garcia, thanks to Kron Gracie, thanks to Rodrigo Caprito Medeiros, a 10 or 15-time world champion who was my coach the next year in Brazil. And so the next year I trained so hard, man. I made this training session up, and I designed my own training, and I put a garbage can really close to the mat so I had a place to puke. And then I got about 10 guys that are all world champions, and a bunch of them big. And
Yeah.
I would just lay on my back, and they could get any hold they want on me, and they got 2 minutes to try and submit me.
Oh,
And
geez.
so for 1 year, 5 months, and 25 days,
Just
that's
getting snatched.
that's what I
You
did.
just got
And they just
snatched,
think, and at the end of that time, nobody could hold me down. And I trained with other world champions, multiple
Yeah,
world champions out of
yeah.
Brazil, because on the North Shore we get all the Brazilians coming through who are really good jujitsu guys,
Yeah.
and they all come stay at the Boar's Nest or one of the other places around with all the other jujitsu guys. And so, Ricardo Arona, I get so many names that I can't even remember them all. But I got so lucky to be exposed to such amazing people, and if it wasn't for them, I'd just been another dumb guy, beating himself to death trying to win something silly.
Yeah.
And in the end, it's all silly anyway, but it was fun being there. So
That's awesome, man.
And so
Oh.
now we come to here, and after that, I moved to Vegas for a couple of years. I had a gig with Tap Out gym over there. I was designing some products for weightlifting, and so I worked over there as a strength coach
When
for a
Tap
couple
Out
years.
was big. Yeah.
Tap Out was those when Tap Out was big. It was big for a
Yeah.
couple of years there, and then they
Yeah.
went tits up and did something else. And I moved back to Hawaii, and I got patents on a couple pieces of athletic equipment that we have here. And that was my whole focus over there. Was I was trying to get it to market, and I didn't understand how to do that or anything either. But I worked real hard, talked to a lot of people,
Mhm.
and anyway, like the next year, I think my dad died, and then the year after that, I was not feeling good at all, and I got bit by a spider, and on my ass, laying on bed,
Mm.
and watching a movie at night, and jumped up, run the shower, alcohol in your ass. What the hell was that? I was watching a sci-fi, so I got back in there, didn't think nothing about it. 2 days later, my left butt cheek was about 3 times the size of my right. It was bright red, no pain whatsoever,
Wow.
but evidently a brown recluse, and
The
it had
brown
turned into
recluse.
MRSA staph in a couple
Oh.
days, and I was
Oh.
stuck. One of the surgeons or the doctor decided to lance the wound, and I told him
Uh,
ultrasound it first, and he looks at me like I'm the doctor here. I said, "Man, the ultrasound machine's right there. There is no pus pocket. It's cellulitis. I can tell you already. I've had this before. I'm the
and he
doctor
didn't.
here."
He cut it open.
So he sits down, he cuts an incision about this big,
Yeah.
about that far from my butt, from my hole, from my sphincter,
Yeah.
and he sticks 3 fingers in there, digs around, and there's
What?
no pus. And I
No.
couldn't see him doing that, but the nurses, I knew the nurses because they hung out at a place I hang out,
Yeah.
and we'd have beer together and talk, and we were
Yeah.
all good people, we'd swap information. So now I'm stuck in a hospital, and I have to pack that wound every day with gauze and pull it out. I'm in there
Oh
for
my God.
17 days.
Wow.
And then it turns into MRSA staph, and then they can't kill the MRSA staph.
Whoa.
So there was another one of the doctors. I fired one of the doctors because he was using a drug that had been discontinued 10 years before, and in fact, in later peer-reviewed studies, it showed that it might actually promote MRSA, not kill it. And I tried to show him this stuff on the computer, but the guy's really, really old, and he was, my medicine's been good enough for the last 50 years. And I remember telling him, "Yeah, your dinosaur's over there. It's hungry, because you put it on a dinosaur, man." So anyway, I get a new doctor, and they bring me this really, really, really sparkly-eyed lady from. She looked Indian to me, and you could just look at her and just know she was smart.
Yeah.
I mean, she just had that about her. It wasn't even
Yeah.
anything she said. And she says, "They're missing something in this blood test, Mr. English. I'd like you to take another series of tests." And I said, "You're damn right they're missing something." And so I didn't know what they were missing or anything like that. So she takes the blood test, reads the blood test, and then she says, "I'm going to be back. I have to go talk to some doctors." And an hour or two later, 5 doctors walk in my room, and they look serious as shit. And I'm
Mm.
on my laptop, kind of sitting off on one cheek, trying to
Just
look
how
up
long has this been already so far that you've been dealing
18
with it?
days at this
18
point.
days.
And I'm sitting there, and and I know I recognized one of the guys because he was in my jujitsu class. One of the guys that I was crushing stuff. Nice guy, really, really solid guy too. He ended up becoming really good later. He was good anyway. They said, "We're just wondering how it is you're still alive."
What?
And that was the first thing that came out of the guy's mouth. And I said, "Well, because I want to be." And I said, "What's
Uh-huh.
going on, man?" And
Yeah.
they said, "Well, we want to do some pictures because we're not quite sure how you can still be alive." And so I had what
Really?
they called the widowmaker, and 2 arteries were 99. One was completely blocked, and one was 99% blocked, and they'd never ever seen anybody
Oh,
alive in that condition. And I had
99.
trained right through this ethereal sclerosis that was rampant throughout my body. I was basically born with it. When you go back to how this,
Oh, I see.
when you go back to the meds and look at all the stuff. So anyway, I'm like,
That's crazy.
"Yeah, it was." And I'm like, "Okay, what are you saying?" He says, "Well, we've got you scheduled for surgery on Thursday." I go, "It's Tuesday. I've been here 18 days." I said, "I'm going to get up. I'm going to go down to the beach. I'm going to get a case of beer and some pokey, and I'm going to watch the sunset, and then I'm going to go home. Call me at home when you're ready to go." And they go, "No, no, 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 no. You don't understand." I go, "I understand just fine. I'm paying $2,500 a day for this room." You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
great. And so, but I didn't really understand at all. And
Hmm.
I went to get up, and I got all this stuff on me, and all of a sudden I felt something I never felt before in my life. One doctor looked right at me and just ran out of the room. Other doctor came around the bed, and I grabbed the bed, and he goes, "You just turned completely gray. Sit down."
Like you were about to
Great.
die.
Yeah, I was going to die right there.
Okay.
45 minutes later, I was in surgery.
They were like, we need to take you right
That guy
now.
runs back in. He goes, you're at 45 minutes. Let's go.
So the whole MRSA thing was the least of your worries.
The MRSA thing is the only reason they found the blockage. And
So
I
if you
wouldn't
didn't
been-
have the MRSA, you
if
would
I
have never
didn't get
gone
bit by
in.
that spider, I'd be dead already.
You'd never gone in. You would have just died.
No, I would have just
Yeah.
died. I would have
Yeah.
just died. Isn't that crazy? You know,
That's
little spider
freaking
bites me on the ass.
wild.
Watching movie naked on my bed.
Right. And then that spider saved your life.
It
Basically.
saved my fucking life, man. Because
That is so
and
wild.
and it wasn't that. If that doctor would have listened to me and not done the ultrasound,
Yes.
and you know what I mean. If he would have done the ultrasound, then he
Right.
would have never made the incision. I would have never been in there.
So there's all these weird things.
It had to happen all at once, or else I'd be dead right now.
That's crazy.
And
yeah,
it was crazy
yeah.
because a month before I knew I wasn't doing well because I was going to a friend's wedding on the beach, and I had to walk in this, some of the sand here is hard to walk. It really
Yeah,
deep. It's
yeah.
100 miles to go, 100 feet. And I could barely get across the sand. And I remember TJ Thompson looking at me and he goes, "You're not doing good." I said, No, whatever it is, it's really bothering me. And my feet had been killing me a lot and I didn't understand what was going on. So after we get through it all and everything, we went to into the operating room. And so just so everybody knows what goes on, I wanted to see what was going on because I've been reading and I've always been very inquisitive. And I was so glad that when the web came up, I learned a lot of things.
Yeah.
And so they set me up on the table sideways. Your arms are taped to your side and they run a catheter up through your femoral artery on your left leg. And then you're strapped and you're taped to the table. So so you can't move. And so
Oh, wow.
it was just only this is only I had 4 angioplasty surgeries for 7.5 hours each, where they just stick the balloon in, blow it up, stick the balloon in, blow it up, stick the balloon, blow it in, stick. Anyway, they put in 2 stents the first time. It only took about 2 hours, and I was walking 2 hours after surgery.
That's wild.
And when he put the first stent in, this is the craziest thing in the world because he said, "I'm having a hard time right now." He said, "Your veins are big as your arteries," and I've been reading about collateralization and how when your big arteries are blocked, it forces your body tries to find a way to get the blood where it needs to go. So I have so many veins that are so big because I just kept training like a madman because I was determined no matter what because I'm too stupid to stop. Right? That's basically it.
I see.
And so
that's wild, man.
Anyway, it's I was one of those kids that was born 2.5 months too early. So
Okay.
the last part of your body to develop when you're born is your legs, your base cardiovascular system, the
Okay.
brain, the heart, and then it goes down there. And so when you're born 3 months too early, you're your legs and stuff don't fully develop. And so there's a huge percentage of kids born the same way that have rampant atherosclerosis. I don't know how it was in an article on epigenetics, and they were talking about it and trying to find causes for a lot of people born the same way, so on and so forth. So anyway, they put 2 stents in. It was amazing. That first stent went in, and he goes, "You're going to feel a lot better right now." And he let the air out of the balloon, and I felt 50 pounds lighter laying on the bed. It was the most. I felt like Superman. Of course,
So,
I'm on a drip. Of
you had
something,
been, I mean, you had been doing all this stuff with this artery being blocked.
Yes,
and
that's
so crazy.
I did the Vegas Open in 2010.
And it was blocked already.
Well, I forgot when I was at Tap Out, I was on jiu-jitsu full time while I was doing my big benches and shit.
Yeah.
And I won the Vegas Open and I won the Arizona States. And the funny thing about the Vegas Open, because I weighed about 250 then, and arms were about 20 inches, and my ass was like 46 or 48 inches. I was huge. And I'm grappling a lot. So to have this weight and be able to grapple and still be flexible, and I can still do the splits and all this stuff. And I remember at the Vegas Open, I smoked the first guy really bad. And then I'm warming up for my second fight. Nobody shows up. Okay. I got to fight 7 times this day, right? So I get ready for the second fight. Nobody shows up. I'm going, "What's on? What's going on?" One of the guys comes up and he goes, "Nobody's going to go with you, dude. You smashed the first guy really easy, and he's a badass, and everybody wants to do the no-gi, and they figure if they go with you, you're going to break something on them." Let's the fucking
Wait, so they
thing.
all just dropped
Well,
out?
well,
Like,
yeah,
or-
they did. And when I was pissed off about it, I got kind of mad at the guy. They said, "Why don't you come over and tell me so I don't spend all my time fucking warming up? I got to warm up 6 fucking times today." They went all the way to the end of the tournament, and only one other guy fought, and they were
Wait,
no.
these guys didn't go with you?
This was a gi. I did
Oh,
the
a
gi.
gi.
I
I
did the
see.
gi division,
Oh,
and
I
so
see. I see.
and so I just did the gi because that's what I learned when I started. And I mean, I was a wrestler, but anyway. So I learned an important lesson there. And but during that tournament too, I was having issues with blood flows in my hands and shit. My hand was getting tired in one match, and uh, and then a couple months later, I went and did the Arizona State Championships too, and I had a real problem in that tournament where my hands. I remember I have this guy down, and I just stopped fighting with him. He's trying to get away, and I'm just looking at my hands, and I'm going, "I have the strongest hands in the world. What's happening here?" And it didn't go to my head because I never thought that I had blockage
I
around,
see.
and
Yeah.
it was really that should have been a sign. And now I look for that in anything I do because
Like
I've
your
learned.
hand strength.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
stuff.
everything about
Yeah.
that. And so I wish I would have learned that before I went to all
I
the
mean,
problems. But
how
the spider
long?
saved my life.
I mean, how long you think you had the blockage for? How
Well,
long it was
it was
there?
years of blockage. It was
Slowly
years,
building
yeah,
up, right?
yeah.
So,
And it's interesting when you get into it. But and since then, I've had 2 more stents, 3 stents put in.
oh
So I have
wow.
5 stents in me, and I eat a good diet. I don't eat a lot of crap, and I grow food.
Yeah.
I'm pretty much carnivore, and uh, I love my Malabar shrimp, and I got the best papayas on the planet, and a bunch of other stuff coming out now too. So I've had a good diet for a long
Man.
time, but it is what it is. But think about that, if it just would have been for a spider biting me on an ass
Oh yeah.
and a dick doctor not listening to me,
Right. I know.
and he
Hey,
wasn't a dick, okay?
so
He didn't listen.
well that we do a lot of the our podcast. We talk about a lot of like bodybuilding, and we talk about performance enhancement and all this stuff. And so when you were doing all that stuff while you were in jujitsu and even lifting, I mean, were you on at any time? Were you doing some
When I was in
PEDs or
when
anything?
I was in Costa Rica, I was there for 3 years, and I met the ex-president of the country and a bunch of his people, and so I ended up working for some people, and you could walk into the pharmacy there and buy whatever you want,
Yeah.
and you could walk in and get Deca, Sostanon, Halotestin, all these different things,
Yeah.
and so I did a bunch of Sostanon, 250s. That worked
Mhm.
really, really good with me. And like I'd somebody had given me Anadrol before, but Anadrol didn't do shit for me, not a
Oh, really?
goddamn thing.
Really?
And
Mm.
it just one of those things, man. It just didn't do anything
Interesting.
for me. And so for me, getting strong, getting big to where 130-pound dumbbells didn't feel very heavy. It was 50 milligrams of Dianabol and about 600, 750. I do 3 Sostanons a week, and do cycles of about 6 to 9 weeks, and then do some HCG for intramuscularly, human
About
chorionic
2 weeks.
gonadotropin to kick your testes back in,
Yeah.
and then you take time off, and then go back at it
That was their
again, and just
cycles.
and just
Okay.
do a cycle
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
And then like with the Dianabol in the old days, you don't want to do more than 6 or 7 weeks because it really stops becoming so effective, and it becomes more of an irritant. And so
Yeah.
that's what a lot of people don't understand is they're not getting the same result, and so they double the dose, and that's not going to help. It's not really going to help. You're going to poison yourself way more. You're way better off to go out, and then you're way better off spending more time under tension. So when in bodybuilding, if you want to get big, it's more important the time under tension. I mean, look at
Mm.
what was the blonde kid's name that won for a bunch of years right after
Color
what?
or who?
Cutler, yeah, and
Jay
Cutler
Cutler.
said
Yeah.
he never benched over a couple 100 pounds.
Yeah.
Everything for him was time under tension. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
And Metzger back in the day, they were talking that
Mike
kind.
Menser.
Yeah, Menser, yeah, they were talking that kind of a thing too. And so, like, really for me, I wasn't trying to get real big, but I got really big, and I was trying to be really strong.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
my goal, and I didn't care.
Right.
I mean, I wanted to look good, but I looked great as far as I was concerned. I
Yeah.
mean, tear telephone books in half, really, really flipping, do all this weird shit. Flipping tires were fun, but stupid exercise.
No,
Stupid
that's cool.
exercise. That's a good way to tweak your
Yeah.
back.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Oh man, that's crazy, dude. Yeah, that's
so
awesome.
so I did that, and then another thing is when I was training with Curtis, somebody had some growth hormone, so I did growth hormone for a year subcutaneously,
Mhm.
and I didn't and this is from a pharmacy and everything, and I didn't
You didn't see it.
see
Yeah.
anything. And then what
Yeah.
really the secret to anybody guys who get good gains on growth hormone is they're not doing it subcutaneously, they're doing it intravenously. And it really needs to go into your blood system because that's where your body drops it to. Your body doesn't pump it into your fat and lose it in your fat and kill it. It's a very fragile protein, and when you pump it into your fat, it's not near as effective as doing it intravenously. And I have these great veins, and so I would just make it up, and it'd be sitting in the fridge, and then at 2 in the morning I'd wake up to go pee, and just boom, and then go back to sleep, and you'd sleep real good, and it helps you recover hugely.
Yeah.
It makes a big difference in your eyesight, and the main advantage of growth hormone is it keeps hydration in your joints, your ligaments, your tendons, your cartilage, your eyes. When you get my age right now, I wish I live on a farm off grid, so I don't have a fridge that I could run full time. I'd be on growth hormone right now because my eyes are starting to change at this age. And so the lens changes because your eyes aren't retaining enough moisture and they're just not hydrated enough. And there's a lot of things that happen with that. And when you get over 60, 65, you have these memories of doing these great things, but you can just grab a bar and do a bench press and pop a pack. You have to be really, really careful about what you do because breaks just come out of nowhere. When I was younger, I could feel shit coming, let go. No, my arm was breaking, let go, But at this
That's
age,
true.
things just happens. Because, well, you'd like 3 years ago when I quit lifting, and you told me I didn't look good after doing that bench press. Remember, we're sitting here,
Yeah.
and you told me, Steve, you're not looking good after that bench press. And I looked at Ken, my training partner, and he goes, "No, you aren't looking good." And I'd been doing 460 before that, really, the year before, really pretty easy, and I was 62 or 61 or something. So, and then the guys told me that I was lifting more than the world record, and I didn't believe that at all.
Right.
But then they showed me, and then I said, well, hell, maybe I'll just train and go, do a powerlifting thing, and I started training for that. But as I was training, things were getting weirder and weirder too, because I've been lifting all this weight, and all of a sudden, I'm not able to lift the same weight. And it can't be, I know I'm getting older, but it can't be happening this fast that I'm losing this. And so I was having a hard time with just 400. And I'm like, man, I can do 400 one-handed. No, I can't do 400 one-handed, but you know what I
Yeah,
mean. You
yeah.
just think I used to pump that out 10 fucking times, easy.
Right.
And then so when I was training and then I wasn't feeling good, and then you told me on that day, okay,
Yeah.
and you told me maybe you can keep doing it, Steve, but I don't think you got another couple of years. You keep doing that, you're going to die. And you told me that, and
I did.
and I looked at you and I looked at Ken, and I knew these guys weren't lying. I know that first of all, it took big balls to say that. I mean, you got them in a bucket right now. But anyway, within a year, I was back in the hospital getting 2 more stents put in.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
and if
Yeah.
I wouldn't have done that, he was 100% right because I didn't feel good when I set up.
Yeah.
I was kidding myself that I felt good because
Yeah.
I wanted to feel good. I wanted to be great, and
And it's crazy because I remember I would watch, and I see it. I'm like, oh, he's strong. And then I could just see it, man. And then I remember thinking, I was like, man, Steve's a stubborn guy. He's like, he's gonna push for whatever he wants. I get it,
Yeah.
but I remember just like having to tell you that,
well, just like
I was
the
like,
smarter,
man, like,
fighter,
dude,
you saved
I
my
gotta say
life.
something. Yeah, I gotta say something to you because I was like, and you know what? And this is the thing, man. I was like, hey, if he's cool with it, then right on. Like I'm just like, if he's cool with it
Well, that's
and
yeah.
he's good, then I'm like, great, dude. He got 2 more years in him. Right on. That's cool. Like that's how I am. I'm like,
Yeah,
right on.
yeah.
I love the guy. It's cool. Whatever. If that's what makes him happy, and because I even tell him too, I've always said, I'm like, hey, you're still alive, bro. All right. And I say this kind of being funny because
Yeah.
the way he lives his lifestyle, I'm just like, he's
Yeah.
gonna do shit that he
Yeah.
wants to do. And I'm
Oh,
like,
yeah.
so I'm like, all right.
Make me
And he's
sentimental.
still around though. I know, but he's still here from the time that I met him. I mean, shit, well, we
Well, I ain't
met in
giving
the
up.
90s,
I ain't
but
giving up because I'm going to decide when I die. This ain't nobody else's
Yeah.
choice. And
no, like I feel like
already know now.
you're gonna be around for way longer than I ever
Well, I
expected.
know now what
Yeah.
what's going on.
Yeah,
So,
right.
And so I feel a lot better since I had the other stents put in. So I figured it took about 10 years to get blocked up. So I got 10 more years. So,
Yeah, probably at least.
I know there's
least.
something by then that's better.
At least, well, and I think you're taking care of yourself better now. So
Oh yeah, way
I don't
better.
think the powerlifting and things like that wasn't helping you. So
way better. My only
Yeah.
goal now is just to be consistent in what I'm doing and just
Yeah.
to keep getting better at benching. And I'm never going to bench 565 ever again or
That's
anything
fine.
like that.
Yeah, that's fine.
I doubt I'll ever do 400 again. But
Yeah.
the idea is I can always get better. I can always improve, and I'm just
Yeah.
going to focus on base bodybuilding workout because the powerlifting just isn't really at this age. It's just hard on the body,
Well,
and I don't need to tear a cartilage or a tendon. I have no cartilage in my
Yeah.
right knee. My ACL's gone in my right knee, so I can't go back to jujitsu. And I love grappling more than anything in the world. But I can't do that. And then I was never really a bodybuilder, but I was lifting weights and getting big, and but I wasn't competing per se.
yeah.
But I trained with all bodybuilders. And so that was the funny thing is I was using bodybuilding techniques to get super strong.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't for bodybuilders, I would have never been what I am.
Oh yeah, I mean, and there was a plan. I mean, you looked really good. That that one group picture that you got.
That's a good one.
Yeah. Give that to Jed. We'll
I
actually
can
post
put it
that up
up.
there. He can
Oh,
he
yeah,
can put
yeah,
it up
yeah.
there. So
Send it to
we
me.
send it because that was a good one. I wasn't
wish
in
you
this
would have been
picture.
here that day.
I don't know where I was.
Oh, no, that's
I
such
think
a good picture.
was I even?
I think I was
for anything at the time?
57. Well, this
Yeah.
is 57, and at 50,
Everybody was in shape though at that time.
oh,
I
we
don't
were
know
in
what I was
great
doing,
shape.
but
We were,
but yeah, dude. I mean, it's crazy,
we
man.
were in awesome shape, man.
And it's funny, like you said, like you definitely backed way off of the weights now, and that's good.
Oh.
Like me, dude. Like I'm like for me, 225. Bench press, incline press for 10 reps. That's cool. Like, that's what I'm staying at. I just do that. Like to get 10 to 15.
Yep.
That's it. I just stay. I don't even really have to even go heavier. I'll do pauses a lot more. I'll just squeeze. I just go slower, and I just stay with that
negatives.
weight, and I just
Yeah.
do the negatives.
Yeah.
And sure, I could go up, but I just stay with that weight,
No.
and I just feel the weight, and it's
I-
good. Like you said,
yeah.
anything can happen, right?
Yeah, well,
something
well,
can,
like I
something
did
can tear.
I did
That's a picture?
285 the other day,
Yeah, this is the picture.
and
Yeah, that was the photo.
God
yeah.
damn.
I sent it
Yeah.
to your phone.
That's
That was a group. Yeah, that was a group. And Jody looks good now too. Look
Oh,
at
yeah,
Jody's
Jody
belts.
Jody looks
Jody
unreal.
looks good. I wasn't in that photo though. I don't know where I was at. I
was-
remember.
I was
I
the old-
remember.
I was the old
Jeez.
man.
I
in the
remember
photo.
you guys
God
taking
damn.
it too, and
Yes.
I was there, and I was
huge.
looking. I was like, oh, okay.
Well, I'm going to
And
get that blown up into a poster
Yeah.
for you because you need to
gotta-
have
you
that
gotta
here.
where I
hang that.
was.
You gotta hang that up here.
didn't
Yeah,
know
that's
where I
worth
was,
hanging
yeah.
up here
That
because
is worth hanging
because
up up
I'm
here.
57 there and everybody else is under 50 pretty much. It was a pretty good. It was and Jody looks amazing. I mean, these
Yeah.
guys just look. Everybody looks just
Yeah, it's
good
crazy.
right there.
Yeah, that's
You know?
amazing.
Yeah, we'll
It's-
put
it's
that on there.
Pretty
but-
interesting how you guys bring that up. We've talked about that pretty often. We have a peak, a highlight, a prime time in our life, and then we start to see the dwindling down of our health, our age, and everything that comes across with it.
Yeah,
Accepting of that and knowing like, oh,
That's the hardest thing.
Yeah,
that's for me. That's the hardest thing in the world, accepting it
accepting
because
that.
because it was just
being okay with it. Yeah. Well, I know.
Well, I
that's
don't
why
have
I
a
said.
choice now.
Well, that's why I said. I was like,
I mean,
it's
I
like,
used
no,
to just,
you're stubborn.
yeah, I used to just
And
have to
and
sit
the
down
funny
and
thing
do
is,
shit.
I would
you
never
know?
tell you. I'd never tell you to not do
But that
stuff.
was, you said
Yeah,
55, 57?
57.
Yeah, yeah.
And then and remember that we used to have the big dumbbells back there, and my goal was every day was to get to the
Yeah.
165s.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
Jody was like, we started doing flies, and you started with 100.
Yeah.
I said, well, yeah, I know I can do 100 easy,
Yeah.
and that's
crazy.
flies. You know what I mean? That's
crazy.
just what I was doing. So
That was wild.
and I did, and you see, to me, that didn't seem very fantastic because training with Curtis, that would be nothing. That'd be a
Yeah.
2-finger thing. I'll tell you a story. One day with Curtis, we're in the gym and we did a leg day or something, and we went over just to do some bicep to screw off for a second. And I weighed about 195 at the time, and Curtis was 300 pounds, and I we're doing straight bar curls with a 45 on each side,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And 7 or 8 or whatever. And Curtis is just doing like 6, see, that was his number, right? And I told him, I said, I'm going to out curl you easy on this. You're too tired. And, he obviously weighs me about 100 pounds or something, so it's not very likely I'm going to. And anyway, on that day, I curled 365, and it was a throw curl. It wasn't a strict curl. It's
Right.
nothing, but 365 for 3.
Got it up.
And the fourth one I dropped. And Curtis smiled at me and said, that was pretty good. And there's like over 100 witnesses. People still come up to me and say, you were the dude with the big dude. Curtis put on 4 plates, 405. And Curtis curled 405 4 fucking times, man. And I mean, he fucking curled it, man. It was
Yeah.
just like, and he says, I can do more. It was just,
Yeah,
it was just
sure.
so
Fucking
so
Curtis.
Curtis has passed away since, but
Yeah.
Curtis called me 2 weeks before he passed away. And I used to spot him on behind the neck military presses. And you've never seen anybody impressive until you see what he could do. I mean, I wasn't never allowed to touch the bar. Only if he missed it. He never missed. He yelled at me once because I touched the bar because he never staggered. I mean, it was his lifts were perfect. And he called me 2 weeks before he passed away, and said that he was doing 550 behind the neck for 5 by himself,
Mm. Yeah,
lifting
he's
it
crazy,
off
dude.
behind the neck and racking it.
God damn.
550. And I was with him when he was doing 5, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And we're putting a dime on each side, you know what I mean? And he was training with Joe Onosai.
Well, because
did,
I saw Joe on
did
a
you see
side.
Joe do 6 plates?
Well, you know what's funny is so I was in there training when those guys were there, and behind the neck military press this was a huge thing, and I
Yeah,
used to do them,
yeah.
and I could do, and it's crazy. I was 220 pounds. I could do 315 for like 10 behind the neck
That's good.
because I was doing bodybuilding reps. I
Yeah.
wasn't doing low.
Yeah,
My
yeah,
reps
they're
were
coming
like
all the way down.
10.
You're
I
doing,
was
yeah.
doing 8 to 10 and above.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
wasn't
yeah.
doing 5 reps, so
Yeah.
I was doing 315, and I could get 10 reps with a 315 behind the neck. And then I was like, yeah, I'm pretty strong, you know what I mean? And I could bench 405 for like 10 to 12, whatever.
Yeah, that's
And I
right,
remember
Normal.
Joe was in there. I remember one day I was actually benching one day, and I was doing 405. Again,
Right.
that was like the working weight for me.
Right.
Cranking out 10 reps, you know.
Right. Once
And
you
then
got to
I remember
405, you were somebody once you got
Oh,
to
well, it
405.
was pretty strong because there was guys
Yeah.
that were way bigger than me who were
Way
like,
huge.
"Oh, dude, you're strong." Joe was sitting there and he was gonna do behind the neck,
Uh,
and he at the time I think it was he had five plates and quarters, so like
Yeah.
it was like 545 or whatever. So
Yeah, yeah.
anyway,
Makes
it
it look
wasn't
easy.
600, but it was under 600, but it was like 545.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think he
545.
did 545. And I want to say he did either a double or a triple with it. He took it off and he was like, boom, boom, you know, like that. And he
Yeah.
racked it, you know.
Yeah.
And then
And he
I
makes
was
it look
laughing.
easy.
No, and I was laughing because I was like, yeah, I'm benching 405. This dude. Granted, Joe was like over 300 pounds.
Oh yeah.
So, I mean-
well, Joe was like a
Yeah.
450 pounds.
Yeah, he was huge. He was huge.
Yeah, yeah,
Well, I
he's
remember I
450.
saw him squatting. He was one of the only guys who would use the 100-pound plates
Yeah.
at the gym and put them on with the 45s, and he was squatting like close to 900 or something.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
he was doing reps with it. You know, like the Coleman video, you see Coleman, but then Joe wasn't
Joe
a
was-
bodybuilder. He was a strongman,
Joe,
but
Joe was 200
he
pounds
was-
bigger than Coleman.
but he was that guy. He was crazy.
What gym was
strong.
this at?
I coached him.
At Gold's Gym,
yeah,
right?
Gold's Gym.
Well, you-
That was the only
Capilani.
place that had
You
the
remember? I
hundreds.
could feel like that they had those, and they had the power room in the
The
back. You
power
remember?
room in the back.
It was
yeah.
the power room, and he used to squat back there.
Yep,
Yep.
I remember seeing.
I like
all
the
of this
power room.
stuff.
I like because they had you could do the stiff-legged deadlift platform.
Yeah,
you
you
can
can do
actually go
platform.
below. You
Yeah.
can actually go all the way down
Yeah.
your feet. Yeah.
And
I
I,
like that thing.
I thought I was pretty strong. I could do like 405, 455, like bent over rows. You know,
Right,
like
right.
you know,
right. You
I
were
mean, I was
strong.
like, I could do like 8 to 10 reps. Like I was like, oh, I'm strong. But I think part of that was because those guys were
It's the
around,
only reason.
and so
Yeah.
I always knew that those guys
To
were
do it.
there.
Yeah, yeah.
Those guys were there, and I was like, man,
And
I
you're
am
not looking at everybody who's weaker than
No.
you. You're only
You're
looking
always
up
looking
over
above.
here, and so you're not understanding that what you're
Yeah.
doing is already crazy. So I'm in there one day, and we're doing push presses, right? So
Yeah.
you step back, and we're doing push presses,
Drive up.
and the most I ever did with a push press is 405, and
That's
they have
good.
the angle rack like this, so it's got the bars here, then it goes up like this, and we'd step in, and because it had
You have
so
to
many
drop
different
it.
pegs,
Yeah,
right? So
yeah.
Curtis could get in there and put it up where he needed it. I could get in there. And so I got this big fucking belt that you pump up. It's the best belt I ever had. Had a bladder in back. So I'd go right into the small of your back and tighten this thing up. And I get in there and I think it's 3 something and 3 plates and something. And I put, whoa, God damn it. Fuck yeah, up like this. And that's all I remember.
Blew it out.
And so I wake up and there's all these faces around me and I can't figure out how they're standing like this. And then I feel the ground and I'm like, what happened? They go, dude, you passed out in the middle of that lift.
Wow.
I engaged my traps, right? Just trying to get it up. and
Oh,
cut out
you
my
passed
carotid,
yourself
right?
out. Yeah, you
And,
passed
and they
yourself
said at the last second, you threw the bar.
Oh, you went
And
like
you look,
this.
and so you look, and the bar was stuck sideways in that rack, and that was the only rack in there that was bolted down. All the
Oh,
other racks in there were
lucky.
loose, right?
Yeah.
And the mirror was behind it,
Yes.
and it was laid like this, and they didn't move it. And they finally got me up, and they go, "Look at that!" And they go, "You just
Oh.
threw it right at the mirror."
You went, whoa, and fell.
I guess
That's funny. Yeah, yeah.
I,
Yeah, you
I don't
caught
like a
yourself.
light, man. But another time I was well, there used to be an argument about how do you bench, which is the best way. The problem with wrapping your thumb is then you have to deal with wrist supination. You have to deal with the fact
Uh-huh.
that you have to keep your wrist. And like in Pancrase, you used to fight like this because you never hurt your wrist, you don't hurt your knuckles. So a lot of people used to bench no thumb, and I used to bench a lot no thumb. And so
Oh boy.
I'm in the gym with 5 plates at Lynn's house on a chintzy little J.C. Penney gym, and we're doing fucking 5 plates on a J.C. Penney gym,
The
right?
bench.
Yeah,
Steady
on the
bench, right?
yeah, crazy. It collapsed one day, you know.
Oh my
That's when I
God.
finally built a good bench for it. But anyway, um, it's really hot and sweaty. It's right on the beach there. The waves are crashing up against the house. There's a little walkway. People walk by, and we're in there lifting super heavy weights, right? And the best thing she had, and I want to make this for here, is a mirror that comes up and goes over the bench. So while you're benching, you lay on your back, you can see yourself. Just needs to be on rollers. It'd be on a piece of board. It would flip like this. You could put it over the
That's
bench.
wild.
Then you can see what you're doing, because the way I got over 500 pounds and I was headed for 6 was because of that mirror, because I could see I was coming down crooked. I could see my elbow come out. I could see I was this way or that way.
Oh, I
And
see.
it changes the way you bench big time.
Mhm.
But I remember taking it off the rack like this, going down like this, and just hitting it really hard. It slipped right off my hand and just dropped right on my fucking chest.
Oh, lucky it fell
And
here,
it,
dude.
it
Yeah.
fell right on my chest, and I almost caught it. You know what I mean? Because you're quicker than you think
Yeah.
sometimes. And then it's down here, and then Lynn is trying to pull it off of me. And so at the time I was wearing glasses, and so Lynn's trying to pull it off me. She's turned sideways. She goes to pull the bar off of me, sits on my face, and doesn't know it. She's really short, right? She's only like 5 foot tall,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But and so she sits in my face,
Breaks
and
your
she's trying to
glasses.
pull it off, smashes my glasses into my face. I'm laughing because I have a sweaty woman ass on my fucking face trying to pull it off of me. And it's everything
shit
we can do
glasses.
to get it up. And we get it back on that cheap ass JC Penney bench, right? And I get up, and she goes, "What happened to your glasses?" And I go, "Feel your ass." And she goes, "Oh, I feel that now." Anyway,
yeah.
so we went and sat down, and we're just kind of sitting there, and the bench is kind of shaking, and then the bench just goes like this and collapses
Collapse
right there.
falls.
And that was the end of
I
that.
can't
JC
believe you guys
Penney
were
bench.
using that bench.
And then
I had one of those growing up.
5 plates on it, and
Oh,
then
man.
I built her one of the first walkthrough.
Yeah.
So
the
so you don't
walkthrough
so,
bench,
so you
right.
don't have to step over the bar to grab the
Right.
bench. It allows you that bench allows you to quit in good position. It allows you to do really true overload training, because the way I set up the spotters, you can get way more and do your negative and stay in perfect position, and then just set it down and slide out from under
Yeah,
it. And there's no other way to do an overload principle safely. You know what I mean? Because if you're really trying to overload and do it, you need to know in your head that you're okay.
Yeah.
And that you can just get out and be good. And so that's kind of why I did that. It took me a while to figure out how to do everything, because there's a bunch of prototypes and stuff, you know, and they did, you know. So anyway, it was a great thing, you know. And then the worst happened. I was doing 555, or it was right around between 550 and 560 or something like that.
Yeah.
And I went and bought a Inzer shirt, brand new one,
hmm
and it took Lynn like 15 minutes to put it on me.
Jesus.
You know, and it's just God.
Those
Then you get in
things.
it, and then you've got to be able to work your
Yeah.
shit, and then get your hand on the bar. And then once you bring it out, then you're okay. But you've used so much energy.
It's so
And-
much, right?
Yeah, and we were going to go and try to get to 600, and I remember bringing it down just like this, and you always rotate your elbows
Yeah.
inward. If you don't, you're going into your shoulders, you're going to tear your rotator cuff. So you have to learn to get your lat and your tricep to work in conjunction with each other, along with your ass. Blah, 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 blah. Anyway, and I come down right about here, and the shirt exploded. It had a
blew out.
defect in it, and it just
Oh, no.
smashes me. But we're
Oh,
on the
no.
good bench now. Hit it down, and this time I'm a lot stronger. You
Oh,
know
yeah,
what I mean?
yeah,
And
yeah.
we get it off a lot easier this time. But the whole shirt was shredded.
Oh,
And
no.
I sent I sent the shirt back to Inzer, and 'cause I called him on the phone, told him what happened. They said send it back, and they called me back and said, yeah, it has microscopic defects in it, and we're going to send you 2 free shirts. Hope you're okay. You
Oh,
all right? And I
geez.
said, yeah, I wasn't hurt at all. I didn't know, because after she pulled it off me, I sat there for a second, right? I'm laying there going, I feel all right. You know what I mean? But think about it, 500 and some pounds on a bar that big, and other people don't. But I dropped 400 a bunch of times before, because in the old days doing the fucking false grip and then just getting sweaty.
Yeah, I never
and-
been a big fan of the false grip, man.
No.
I
But
just-
the reason I like the false grip is it takes the wrist out of it. It
Yeah.
takes the wrist out of it, so you can get a direct line to your tricep and lat, and your shoulders are in there too. But really, if you think about it, your lat hits the tricep, then the shoulders, tricep, and everything finishes
Yeah.
the lift.
Yeah.
And that's how it should be. I mean, your pec pulls your elbow inward. So when I So that's what your pecs do in the whole thing is they try to keep the elbow inward, and then your pec wants to stay up here to keep your shoulder over your lat rather than allowing your shoulder to come in front of your lat. So there's a whole way when you get into the powerlifting of how it works. When you do it enough, slow enough, you can just feel the total engagement of everything, and then it just
Yeah.
gets really slick
Yeah.
and really easy and really smooth. And at the end there, I mean, up until I was doing 464, 70 clear up until she almost 60, so that was okay.
Yeah,
And then and
that's
then
pretty
and,
good.
then you told me I didn't look good. And in that year my bench had been going down while I'm training more intensely, right? And so I wasn't, quite getting it, And
Mhm.
then that's what happens. You live alone, so you don't got anybody to talk to you about shit, So that's why I have
Well,
four.
except
I
for
have
over
four
here.
dogs now, so I've learned to talk dog, and I'm
Yeah.
much better.
Except in the gym, people talk to you here. So
Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah.
but it was all. If it wasn't for all the people that I'd met that taught me, that all gave me a little piece of something. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? A little piece of the puzzle. I would have never done anything I did, and I got really lucky. Just like you telling me to stop the spider bite me, and then meeting people that showed me to rotate my elbow inward. Curtis Leffler,
Yeah.
right
Mm.
there. Straighten your wrist. Don't let your wrist come back like this. Straighten your wrist. And it just is an amazing thing. It's always the basics too that people want to jump way past.
Pretty amazing for your whole life story. I didn't know you. I just knew you from when I was a sophomore working at 24 Hour Fitness part time, watching all you big monsters walk through, lift weights, grunt, and make a lot of noise, arm wrestling classes in the
Yep.
racquetball room. um from, like you said, you're born premature. From the
Mm.
time of your birth, it seems like you seem to have been at the right place at the right time, meeting the right people to take you to that next level, which,
It
yeah,
was. It's
by God's grace,
100%. It's all accidents.
amazing story.
Just
Thank you for
all
sharing.
accidents. I mean, I didn't plan this thing.
Yeah.
If I did plan this, my parents would be dead, and they are. And but I'd be getting $25,000 a month every month. But of
Mm.
course, I didn't plan it. So
Yeah. There you go.
But you met all the right people
I
in all the
did. I
right
got
places,
so
and that's
lucky. I got so lucky.
amazing story.
Yeah, and it just was, I mean, just the fact I was dancing in a nightclub and somebody told somebody, and Merv Griffin came, his boys came and saw the show, then the show became a TV show and all these things, and it was just all
That's so crazy.
just by accident. Well, I think it really what it was is I did chase my dreams,
Yeah.
and that's the main thing. Is
Mm.
even when everybody else laughed at me, you're gonna go be a dancer, and I
Yeah.
was.
Well, what is your, we're almost going to wrap it up, but what is your thoughts on like how things are now, like this generation of people, of guys lifting, and working out and all that stuff?
Well,
Like how do you feel about it
well,
compared to like when you were doing it
Well,
coming
there
up?
wasn't near as much knowledge. They have 100,000 times the knowledge that we did,
Yeah.
and if you look at the very best of the best, they're much better than we were,
Mhm.
and they will continue to get better. But if you look at the masses in general, a lot of weird shit going on. So I don't really know. I don't know what to say.
Yeah.
I'm not pretending with you. Okay, so I always just live reality how it is and what it is, and I wish everybody the very best. But they have opportunities now that we never ever had, and,
Yeah.
and they can do so many more. It used to be if you had to sell a product. You had to build in something that would break so you could resell another one and make more. And now there are so many people in the world, you don't even need a tenth of the percent of the population, and you can become very wealthy and very famous just doing one little thing. There's
Mhm.
so much more out there right now.
Mhm.
Huge distractions though too, and I
Yeah.
see people stuck
Yeah.
on their phone all the time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so, and not in the gym. And if you look at the state of America as far as physical fitness goes, we've got the fattest country in the world. And when I
Yes.
was a kid, there wasn't any fat people.
We were
I
talking
agree.
about
Yep.
that.
There wasn't any fat people, and nothing against fat people. Okay, it's just that there's a lot of things going on. There's all kinds of shit. You could go into plastics in the diet. You could go into just the Food and Drug Administration putting out bullshit fucking food pyramids that are just they're just completely stupid and ludicrous, and just retarded people wrote them. And no offense to the retarded people, because you're better than the doctors that wrote those recipes,
Yeah.
because it's just crazy. And I tried being a vegan too, and I'll tell you what happened to vegan. That's where I lost my bench. I was benching 465, and the health issue and shit. So I said, let's go vegan. And I went for vegan for a year and 3-4 months, and I was growing my own food, everything. I'm doing a full. You're not getting enough creatine. You're not getting enough iron. You surely. There's so many things you're not getting, and I watched my bench press just go down, and then I just said, shit. I grew up on a dairy farm, so I went back to more of a carnivore diet.
Oh
You
yeah.
know, so I ate my dark green vegetables. I've got my papayas and a few other fruit trees going.
Yeah.
I've really got about 15 different fruits out there. And then I'm going to have 1,000 dragon fruit trees pretty soon growing, hopefully,
Oh,
if everything works out all
fantastic.
right. And we'll have a lot of dragon fruits. And I like to grow a food that tastes good
Yeah.
and food that, grows more than once a year. So I've got some fruit trees that are from Indonesia that can't remember the name's kind of hard for me to pronounce right now, but they produce fruit year round. And it's an amazing fruit. And so I'm just trying to be more healthy. And then I'm back in the gym finally after 3 years. And we're just
Yeah.
going to keep lifting and try to be healthy and try to teach people if we can, and see what happens. There's still a lot of things
Yeah,
to do.
man.
Still a lot of things to do.
I mean, what would be just the last thing? Like, what would be like? I don't know. What would you give advice to some guys that are trying to coming up that are into whatever bodybuilding, powerlifting, or
Well,
just sport
it's
in
all
general?
technique. It's all time and attention. It's all about the technical aspect of movement itself, and it's not about how much you lift. It's how well you lift what you lift. And you've heard it 100,000 times: suck in your gut, lift your chest, squeeze your ass. And it's all technique. Stay away from the counterfeit drugs. Guys, oh, I got the fucking testosterone 400 milligram per cc. Well, you can't put 400 milligrams in a cc. There's fucking preservatives and all other things that go into that cc. And and they think all this stupid shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I would just stay away from the counterfeit shit and don't do testosterone if you're under 40, and unless you're going to be a pro, because you're gonna fuck with your body's ability to produce testosterone
Yeah.
over time.
Yeah.
And there's drugs out there that have Phenajet, all these crazy drugs people want to do. And I know people that shut
Stay
down
away
their
from trend,
testes for
kids.
10 years
Yes.
because of all these crazy things they wanted to do. So
Yeah.
I would just say you can do anything you want to do with good technique, good people around you, and just keep your eye on the ball, man. Just keep your eye on the goal. And that's what it really is. And don't let anybody get you down,
Mm.
because that's just haters. You know what I mean? And
Mm.
all kind of people, oh, you ain't gonna do this, you ain't gonna do that. And where are they now? They're fat over there sitting on the couch watching people that doing it. So you can achieve anything you want. You just have to believe it and never give up. Because right when you give up, you're gonna find out it was right there.
Yeah.
It's
Mhm.
right there,
Yeah.
Yeah. So I won the world heavyweight. I had no idea.
Yeah.
It's okay, guys.
Yeah.
I'll
Many
fill out the
times, right?
team.
World champ.
Yeah,
Many
yeah,
times in
enough.
different occasions.
The funny thing is that I could have been more, and I just didn't have a solid base, a support group, I would say,
Yeah.
because I'm basically doing things on my own, and then
Mm.
I was really just chasing my dick. I mean,
Right. Right.
let's get real, because
Yeah.
that's what I was doing. You know what I mean? I was dancing in the nightclubs. I was having a blast. You know what I mean? And saved enough money to go all over the world,
Yeah.
but stick to your dreams. Stick to your dreams, man.
Stick
Never
to
give
your
up. Never
dreams.
give up.
That's it.
Give up's the first loser.
Never give up, because this guy, I know he's supposed to
Oh,
be
I ain't
dead a
giving
long
up
time
yet.
ago. He's supposed to be dead a long time ago, but he's still here. I got you on the show, which is great, man. Well, that was
thank
awesome,
you.
dude.
That
That
was
was
an amazing
great.
story. Thank you.
Yeah. That was
My
awesome.
pleasure.
And see, there's like Steve, we got a lot of topics we can talk about. Maybe next time we'll have you on again, and
Oh yeah.
we can go into
There's
some
there's
other.
other things.
This right here is the bio, so I wanted that first, and then we'll have you come back on, and we can.
Well, there's the
We can
party
talk.
stories too.
Oh,
But,
yeah.
oh no, there's a lot of things. So, but this was
the
part
PG ones.
part one of Steve English. So this is great.
Yeah.
At least
Well, I
get
appreciate
your
it. I
story out there,
appreciate
man.
it.
No, yeah,
Give me
man,
a
of
chance
course,
to come
man.
talk and just
Yeah,
and just
yeah, dude.
say it, bring back a lot of memories. So that's good.
If
Yeah.
there's one thing that I could tell the audience or whoever is watching as well too, like the old guy in the gym, we talk about the old guy in the gym. You might look at him and be like, oh yeah, whatever's old man or auntie. Some of you guys call me auntie. That's not thinking like, oh, she don't know what the fuck she's talking about or whatever. But here's living proof and example that a very undeceiving guy, world champion, been through it all, jujitsu, arm wrestling. What else have you done?
He-
Jumped out of planes
Strongman
over
contest.
600
Yeah, he's a
times.
strongman.
Yeah.
Jumped out of
I love jumping out of
strongman.
airplanes, man. That was
Yeah.
awesome. Had my own airplane because I wanted to have my own airplane so I could jump out whenever I wanted. But when I bought the airplane, I didn't think about the fact that who's going to fly the damn plane.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Yeah,
the
it's
maintenance.
Money. I grew a garden and I made a bunch of money because of the garden, and so I bought an
Oh,
airplane.
and that too, dancer, farmer,
Dancer, yeah,
gardener.
yeah.
So
I know.
yeah,
Farming,
you
Crazy.
never
farming
know.
taught me the basics of everything. If it wasn't for me,
Yeah.
if it wasn't for farming, I wouldn't have had the work ethic, and that was really it. Because to be world champion, here's what I'll say: world champions are the people that can take the most pain.
Yeah,
because the
that
pain
I
and
believe.
training is how you get there. And they're the ones that can take the most pain,
Yeah.
mental, physical, everything. And that's
And
the
that
truth.
and that's where the farming really
Yeah,
taught
farming
you
taught
that.
me hard
Yeah,
work, man.
yeah.
You're leading out a big bull, and all of a sudden it decides it's going to smash you. You know, all kinds of things happen on a farm that people don't
Yeah,
understand.
yeah.
And so just never give up, man. I always say that to people: just don't give up. Live fiercely. Just live fiercely.
That's a
That's
good way
it.
to end it. And take a few notes from the old guys. You just never know. They're a wealth of knowledge.
Push
And
ups, sit ups, pull ups.
yeah, years of experience, life experience that we'll get into next time with
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Mr. English here.
All right, you got anything, Jed?
Good.
Yeah, we're good. All right, well, thanks for watching this episode of Paradise Pump, and we will see you next time.
Thank you.
Aloha.